Hey guys, welcome to The Mom Show. I'm your host, Courtney Doyle, and this is a place I am giving you permission to not have it all together. Hey friends, welcome back to the show. I want to start this episode with a question. Have you ever caught yourself saying, when things settle down after, maybe after summer, after school starts, after this season of baseball, or after the baby sleeps through the night, after we move, after I get caught up at work, after, so many afters. And if you're anything like me, you've probably filled in that blank 100 different ways. Because somewhere along the way, we have convinced ourselves that peace is waiting for us on the other side of calm. That if life would just stop throwing curveballs, and if everyone would just cooperate, if the schedule wasn't so crazy, if our kids would just make good choices, then, and finally, we could breathe, we could rest, we could have peace. But here's what I've learned. There's always another after. The moment one busy season ends, another one begins. The toddler becomes a teenager. The teenager leaves for college. One prayer gets answered, another burden shows up. Life doesn't just stay still for very long, or at least in my world, it doesn't. And if we're waiting for life to settle down before we experience peace, well, we're going to spend our lives waiting. Last week, I had the privilege of talking with Erin Greneaux. One of the things that struck me most was that she somehow found a perfectly quiet season to spend time with God. And it was the exact opposite of what you would think. She described how during exhausting nights with a baby, she stopped filling those moments with distractions and instead began noticing how God was meeting her in ordinary motherhood. Those quiet moments didn't happen because life got easier. They happened because she made space to recognize his presence. And that conversation challenged me because if I'm honest, I don't always wait for peace. Sometimes I actually postpone it. I tell myself, I'll spend more time with God when things slow down, or I'll rest after I finish this project. I'll enjoy this season once we've got through this next thing. And can I tell you something? Sometimes the next thing never comes, or if it does, it's another one that just takes its place. I wonder how many beautiful moments we've missed because we've been so focused on surviving until tomorrow. How many answered prayers have we overlooked because we were already worried about what the next problem is and what the next prayer needed to be? How many sunsets, how many conversations, how many hugs, how many ordinary Tuesdays have we rushed through because our minds were already living in what we needed to do tomorrow or next week? You see, we miss today's grace because we're waiting for tomorrow's peace. I'm going to say that again. Sometimes we miss today's grace because we're waiting for tomorrow's peace. And Jesus never promised us a life without trouble. In fact, he promised us just the opposite. He told us that in this world you would have trouble. But he also said, take heart, I've overcome the world. Notice he didn't say, when life calms down, then you're going to have peace. His peace was attached to our circumstances. It was attached to his presence. And that changes everything. I've noticed something about myself, and maybe you can relate. The second I have a quiet moment, I am so guilty of filling it with really unnecessary things. I grab my phone. I answer one more email. I scroll social media, or I start another load of laundry. I listen to another podcast. I am constantly moving and constantly consuming something. And then sometimes I sit back and I wonder, well, I'm just not hearing from God. And sometimes I wonder if God's whispering, well, your life is just a little too loud. Not because of my kids, not because of my schedule, but because I become uncomfortable with stillness. It's really hard for me to sit still. And so we don't know what to do with silence anymore. We are so flooded and we are so accustomed to noise that quiet begins to feel unproductive. But throughout Scripture, God often speaks in the quiet. Not because he can't speak loudly when he needs to, but because quiet requires us to slow down long enough to actually notice him. Peace isn't found when your calendar finally has white space. Peace isn't found when your child starts making all the right decisions. Peace isn't found when your marriage has no conflict. Peace isn't found when your bank account reaches a certain number. Peace is found when your bank account reaches a certain number or when circumstances and situations finally, cooperate. Peace is found in a person, and that person is Jesus. I've also realized that peace is something that I need to practice. It's choosing to pause before I panic. It's choosing to pray before I Google. It's choosing to worship before I worry. It's choosing gratitude before a complaint. And it's choosing to notice God in ordinary moments instead of waiting for extraordinary ones. Those choices may be small, but small choices shape peaceful hearts. So let me ask you something today. What are you waiting on before you'll allow yourself to experience peace? Have you attached your peace to something? Because if your peace is depending on your circumstances, your peace will always be temporary. But if your peace depends on Christ, it's become something that the world can't take away. Circumstances can't steal. As we step into this month, I want to challenge you. Stop asking, God, when is life going to slow down? Instead, ask, God, where are you already going to meet me today? Maybe during my morning coffee, maybe in the pickup line, maybe folding the laundry, washing the dishes, rocking a baby, sitting beside a hospital bed, in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday. Because if we only look for God in the extraordinary, we're going to miss him in the everyday. Friend, peace doesn't come when life settles down. Peace comes when your heart settles into the presence of God. Life is going to still be loud. Circumstances are probably going to be uncertain. Your to-do list, if it's like mine, is going to be long, and you're going to continue to add to it because you're a mom. It's what we do. But you don't have to wait till everything changes to experience the peace that Jesus offers today. He isn't waiting for your calendar to be clear. He isn't waiting on your attention. He is waiting on your presence. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. If this episode has encouraged you and you want to send it to another mom, for somebody else who may be waiting for the someday when she's going to let herself rest, make sure that you send it to her. And if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed, because next week we are continuing this conversation about peace with my guest, Lindsay Roberts, and I know that you are going to be so encouraged. Until next time. Thanks so much for listening to The Mom Show with Courtney Doyle. Remember to check the show notes for any links, books, or resources that are mentioned in each episode. We want to be sure this blesses other mothers, and in order to do this, if you're listening via podcast, be sure that you like and share. If you could write a review, that would be fantastic. It helps us get in front of other moms. If you're watching via YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button. This way, you won't ever miss an episode. We want to make sure that we increase our reach to other mothers who need a little encouragement, a community, and a whole lot of Jesus. We're so glad you're here.